Good day, everyone. Tim from Timber Visions here. So I just got done uh, setting my mill back up here because I had taken it to do a milling job yesterday. And while I was setting it up here and getting it leveled and everything, I thought to myself, I should probably do a video on how to charge for milling service. So that's what we're going to do here today. Stick with me. So when I first purchased this Woodland Mills HM130 Max, my sole reason for purchasing it was not to do milling for other people. But I did get the trailer package just in case that's something I wanted to do. And I kind of figured I might want to do it a little bit to help offset the cost of the mill. So I've never advertised for milling services or anything like that, but word of mouth, people know I got a mill. They see it here. I have my number over there on a sign for selling firewood. So they get a hold of me, or somebody tells them that I might be somebody that could do that for them. So people do contact me now and then and ask me to do some milling for them. Sometimes I bring the log here and I mill it here, and other times, like the job I did yesterday, I take the mill to their place and mill the logs there, which is, it's kind of a pain, hooking everything up and then hauling it there and then setting up and then tearing down and bringing it back and setting up. But I figure that into the cost. So I figure what I call a mobilization fee, and that's kind of figured into the mileage as well. So I charge $2 a mile one way to their site to mill. So it's kind of similar to what I do with my tractor for stump grinding. I use, a per mile one way, the same amount actually. That covers my fuel and wear and tear in the truck, and the trailer and things like that. And that also, wear and tear on the hubs of this as I'm pulling it down the road. But then I've heard a lot of different ways of charging for milling service. I've heard some folks that will do it by the board foot, and then there's people who do it like I do it, that is per hour. So I charge $75 per hour while milling. So basically that starts from the time I get there until I'm done milling. I don't charge for tearing back down and everything. I figure they can pay for the first, get things set up, and then I will tear it back down, for free, basically. But yeah, so from the time I get there until I'm done milling, the clock's running, basically. And that includes blade changes or whatever. I also have, if I hit metal, then they pay for a blade. So it's $25 if I hit metal in that log. And a lot of times you can see, blue marks on the end of the log, or one or both sides of the log. And that will be an indication, and I'll warn them. I'm like, we might hit metal, and if we do, it's going to be, $25 to replace that blade, because usually it just tears them up. They're shot. You're not going to resharpen them after hitting metal. On that note, I bring a fresh blade. I'm fueled up. I have my water all filled up. I've, ran that to make sure there's nothing clogged in there. I'm ready to rock and roll. You know what I'm saying? Brand new blade. And then I bring, for this job, he was going to do 4 logs. So I brought 3 blades total. 1 fresh blade on the mill, and then 2 other brand new blades. So his logs were very dirty, and we spent a little time trying to knock the mud and gravel off of them to try to save the blades. But after the second log, I did need to change blade, and the clock is ticking that whole time. I mean, it's part of it. If they have nice clean logs, there's going to be less blade changes. I mean, it's just the way it is. So this particular job, he had 2 walnut logs and a couple ash logs. So his walnut logs were in good shape other than they were dirty. And all he wanted was live edge. He didn't want any boards. He just wanted live edge. And the first log was all 2-inch live edge. So it took 20 minutes, right? I mean, I flew through that log. It didn't take long at all. I mean, 20 minutes from the time I got there until the first log was done. So, I mean, that included setup time. So it probably took maybe 10 minutes to mill it, maybe less. Anyway, then he had a larger one that he wanted a lot of 1-inch off of. So, of course, that takes more time. You're making more cuts. So I think that log, probably took 30, 35, maybe 40 minutes. And it was a lot of 1-inch, but it was all live edge. And then he brought an ash log over, and once I got it up on the mill, it was a banana. I mean, it was terrible. And I asked him, I said, "Are you sure you want me to waste time on this log?" And he says, "Yeah, now that he saw it up on the mill, he saw how bad it was going to be. He's like, yeah, we'll just make firewood out of that one." So he pulled it back off. And that's another thing. He did have a skid loader, so that saved some time. But he pulled that back off, put the last log on, and I got that all situated and started milling it. And he left while I was milling, and I would just push the boards off the back, and then in between we'd stack them up. But yeah, I was just pushing them off the back, and he said he wanted 1-inch, maybe a couple 2-inchers out of this one, but all live edge again. And as I got towards the middle of the log, I was seeing ants and a lot of cracks and cavities and things like that. So I went and got him and showed him what it was. He said, "Well, let's take one more cut and see if it gets any better." And it didn't. It actually got worse. So we decided to end the milling job there. But he got some really nice walnut slabs and a few decent ash slabs, and he was really happy, and that's the main thing, right? You want your customer to be happy. But so I gave him a few of my business cards so he could give it to friends or whatever, and then he asked me how much it was. Well, I spent an hour and a half milling, so, and then it was $20 to get there. So I told him $130, and he looked at me and smiled and he says, "That's cheap," which I don't know, is it? An hour and a half and I got $130. I mean, yes, it's probably 2 or a little over 2 hours involved in mobilizing and then setting up here again. But still $130, that's pretty good for a couple of hours of my time, I think. But then that got me to thinking, am I charging too little? Um, these weren't my logs. I've had other people, ask me how much, and I give them, my price, and then they say, "Well, that's way too much." So I don't know if this guy just has a surplus money or he's just used to paying a lot more for things like that. And I don't know that he just bought this bare acreage, so maybe he's just trying to get a feel for things too. And if you're buying an acreage in Iowa, you're spending some money anyway. So maybe $130 didn't seem like very much to him. But I don't know. You guys tell me if you do milling services for other people, am I charging too little? I don't know. I don't know, because like I said, I've had people tell me, that's way too much. So and so will do it for 50 an hour or whatever. And maybe they're just trying to get me lower on my price. I don't know, but I feel it's fair. $75 an hour. I have the equipment, I have the knowledge to be able to do it for them, and I can mobilize to them. So I feel that 75 an hour is pretty fair. But what do you guys think? Put it in the comments. But that's how I do it. Like I said before, some people will do by the board foot, so they do all the sawing and then they figure out the board foot of what they ended up with at the end. I don't know how you would do that on live edge because the width is different, all along there. You just measure at the narrowest spot or what, I'm not sure. But if you do milling services by the board foot, put it in the comments, and you know, maybe they open my eyes to a different way of doing things. The thing that kind of concerns me about doing board foot is that a lot of people just don't know how to calculate board foot. So you tell them, you know, say $1 a board foot, they aren't going to know how much money that is. You get done milling, you figure it all up and tell them, and then they go, you know, I'm not paying that much, you know. Where 75 an hour, they know what that is. They know it's $75. And, you know, if it gets an hour in, they're like, all right, that's it, we're done. And because they only want to spend $75, then, you know, then they have that control, right? Where if it's the board foot, you don't really know until the end. I know the board foot works out better if you're really fast. You can make more money that way. But this isn't a hydraulic mill, it's a manual mill. So, you know, and I'm upfront with people on that. And I also tell them, you know, if you have a piece of equipment to load, it's going to save a lot of time. Because I do have ramps, I can roll logs up onto the deck and do things that way too. But yeah, just my thoughts on charging for milling services. I would love to hear some of you other folks that do this. I'd love to hear your insights on it. And if you are thinking about getting a mill for milling services, maybe this will give you an idea of a way to charge for the milling services, because it's like a lot of those other service jobs, you know, like my stump grinding and stuff like that, or I used to do garden tilling. You know, there's always got to be a way to figure out how to charge for it if you're going to do it as a service. But yeah, I was happy and he was happy, and that's the main thing, right? Both parties are happy. I made a little bit of money with my mill, and then he got some slabs, and I don't know what he's going to do with them. I think he was talking to another guy there, and he said something about maybe selling them or whatever. And yeah, good luck. The walnut was obviously in a very sunny spot because there was a lot of sapwood on it. I bet there was 4 or 5 inches of just sapwood. It was, I don't think I've ever seen a walnut with that much sapwood. So, but yeah, once again, I'm rambling on. I do want to thank you for stopping in and watching this video. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you can teach me something. Man, I hope so. But thanks for stopping. Until next time, be safe, brothers and sisters.